Hello guys, welcome back. I'm Kurt, and we're on part 3 of my review of the Spectacular Spider-Man. It's episodes 7 through 9, so it's story arc number 3. And when we get to the beginning of we start episode number 7, and the first time I saw this episode, when I was watching the show in order for the first time, I saw the Green Goblin. Like, we just instantly get thrown into a fight between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, and I'm thinking to myself, did I accidentally skip a disc? Like, did I put in the wrong one? Because we ended the previous episode when he sees Mary Jane for the first time, and he's gonna go to the fall formal with her, and then suddenly we're instantly in this fight. We don't see like what happened between that or anything, but no, it turns out this is the very next episode. So it's Spider-Man, and the first time we see the Green Goblin. And it turns out that this is actually, we get what happened via an extended flashback sequence, which takes up, I think, the first half of the episode. So we see what happens during that flashback. Spider-Man, or rather Peter, did take Mary Jane to the fall formal, and Flash Thompson is there with Liz, and Glory Grant is there with Harry, and Gwen is there with Eddie Brock. She wanted to go with Peter, and she tried to, like, subtly, I think that's the word, like in a subtle way, she tried to tell Peter that, to like get her to invite her, but he didn't get the idea, which she was kind of disappointed about. So she went with Eddie Brock, and Peter ends up walking in with Mary Jane, and everybody's like shocked that he's walking in with a girl like that. And what happens? Flash tells Mary Jane about the bet because he thinks that maybe this will make him less favorable to her or something. But Mary Jane just like goes along with it and everything when she hears about the bet, and she says to Flash that she hopes he looks good enough in the cheerleader skirt that he has to wear like in Halloween and everything. It's really hilarious. And then what happens is we get to see J. Jonah Jameson's son, John Jameson, for the first time. And John Jameson is an astronaut. And J. Jonah Jameson takes him to, like, this building where Tombstone, even though they don't know that he's Tombstone or the big man, they just know that he's L. Thompson Lincoln. He's holding, like, a meeting there, or a speech or something. I can't remember. And during that time, at the dance, meanwhile, which is not the same place where L. Thompson Lincoln is. I'm kind of going out of order here. We see Glory Grant gets back together with Kong after breaking up with him, which makes Harry really upset because she is supposed to be his date to the dance, and so he runs off. He pulls out a vial of this green substance, drinks it down, and then we don't see him again. And meanwhile, at the place where L. Thompson Lincoln and J. Jonah Jameson and John Jameson and a whole crowd of a bunch of people are, we see the Green Goblin, who attacks, and the Green Goblin has hired some of the big man's thugs to like go against the big man, because basically the Green Goblin wants to overthrow the big man. So he get some of the big man's thugs to turn against him, like work for him. They go into the building and start attacking. J. Jonah Jameson calls Peter on the phone and says that he needs him to get over there to like get some photos and stuff. And so Peter tells Mary Jane that he has important business and everything, and Mary Jane understands. And even though they never actually tell you this on the show, they never tell you whether or not it's true on the show because the show never got completed. Of course, it got canceled after 26 episodes. I strongly suspect that Mary Jane actually knows that he is Spider-Man this entire time. Like, even before he met her. Just like it was in the comics, I believe. I'm not sure of the exact details in the comics, but I'm pretty sure. I strongly suspect that she knew the entire time, and that's why she's perfectly okay with it and everything. So Peter becomes Spider-Man. He goes to the building where the Green Goblin is attacking, and they fight. And the Green Goblin has his pumpkin bombs. And what's cool in this version is that the pumpkin bombs actually make these screaming noises when they explode. And he has, I think they're called razor bats, even though I always just call them helicopter knives, because when I saw the Spider-Man live-action movies, when I was a kid, I called them helicopter knives, so that's just what I'm going to call them, helicopter knives. He throws helicopter knives and pumpkin bombs at Spider-Man. And he's got like this glider, and just like in the comics, and this blade that pops out the front of it, which is kind of cool. And so they start fighting, and meanwhile, the dance, Mary Jane dances with a bunch of other people, and her and Flash Thompson actually get crowned the fall formal, because prom would technically be later in the year. Sorry, I get all this stuff mixed up. They get crowned the king and queen of the fall formal, her and Flash Thompson, Mary Jane and Flash Thompson do, which kind of makes Liz Allen jealous. Oh man, I just keep wanting to insert Carrie jokes here, but I'll hold back on that. What happened next? We get back to the fight between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, and Spider-Man and the Green Goblin go out into like the city and fight, because the Green Goblin is like flying through the city and Spider-Man's fighting him. Spider-Man eventually ties up the Green Goblin, and the Green Goblin reveals that he put this really deadly bomb. He hit a really deadly bomb somewhere in the building where all the people were. So Spider-Man swings back to the building, warns everybody that there's a bomb. They all start to flee the building. But then John Jameson remembers the Green Goblin swinging from the chandelier, and oh man, I keep wanting to. I'm gonna want to insert a joke about that song now. Okay, I'm just gonna sing it. I'm gonna swing from the chandelier. Okay, you heard me sing it. Couldn't resist. Sorry. John Jameson, while he's fleeing, he remembers the Green Goblin swinging on the chandelier at one point when he first arrived. So, he deduces that the bomb might be in the chandelier, so he runs all the way back up to tell Spider-Man that that's probably where the bomb is. Spider-Man looks, and that's where it is. So Spider-Man throws it out of the building just in time, way up into the sky, where it goes off, and it's this huge explosion, which is pretty cool. But imagine if that had actually gone off in the building. That would have been deadly. And then, what happens next? They have like this, he has like this talk with the big man, and, the big man talks to him about how Spider-Man rejected working for him for pay, but now he's just ended up having to work for him, having to do something for him for no pay. And he says, that's what we call irony, which I thought was kind of interesting. I think that joke does get repeated later by Spider-Man, even though, yes, I'm giving away spoilers, but if you guys haven't seen this show by now, then... But I'm not sure if that actually happens within this show, or if it doesn't happen until the fanfic. So, because I can think of 2 places where it would have been, and one of them happens in this show later on, and one of them is in the fanfic, and I'm not sure which one it takes place in, so I'm gonna have to... We'll find out when that happens. Anyway. He emails the photos to the Daily Bugle, and J. Jonah Jameson thinks that Peter never showed up, so he calls Robbie at the Bugle to tell him that he should fire Peter Parker because he never showed up. And he's like, speak for yourself, he already sent photos. And Jameson's like, he did what? Peter gets back to the dance, and he sees that most of the people have left, so he's like, I really blew it. And then Mary Jane appears behind him and says, oh, I wouldn't say that. And they share one last dance together, and then that's the end of the episode. A pretty good episode, probably not one of the best ones, but still interesting. And then we get the next episode, where, man, I remember it had Dr. Octopus in it. And Dr. Octopus is my favorite Spider-Man villain of all time. So, we see Harry taking more of that green fluid stuff. And what they're trying to tell us here is that basically that green stuff is basically supposed to be like drugs, because in the comics, Harry Osborn did have a drug addiction at one point, but it was actual like pills and stuff. It wasn't this green formula. But of course they can't do that in a kid's cartoon and everything. They never be able to get away with showing that. So they basically have him take this fictional green formula stuff. And that's basically his drug addiction in this show, which works pretty well. It works really well with what they're trying to accomplish. And, we see the Green Goblin attacking more. The Green Goblin sneaks into Dr. Otto Octavius' lab, and he turns on the machinery while Dr. Octavius is working on it, and because it's not supposed to be on when he's in that room, and it fuses Dr. Octavius's harness to his body, like the harness that has the mechanical arms on it. And he decides to take revenge on Norman Osborn for being so mean to him, because Norman Osborn calls him like Dr. Octopus as like a name, which ticks Dr. Octopus off. And upon like kind of seeing this, I wasn't really a huge fan of the way they did this at first, but because I'm more of like the big like the German accent Dr. Octopus from the Spider-Man the animated series, where he talks like this all the time, because that's the voice I hear in my head, and I know I just botched that accent really badly, but that's the Dr. Octopus voice I hear in my head all the time whenever I'm reading like Dr. Octopus out of the comics. So I wasn't really a big fan of like this kind of like nerdy Dr. Octopus, but upon really thinking about the way he was portrayed in the comics, I actually think this is probably closer to what the people who wrote the comics had in mind at the time. Because we have this guy who kind of is like power hungry, and people call him like Dr. Octopus behind his back, and he doesn't really like that. So this kind of does feel like a more comic accurate portrayal, so I actually really, really like the direction they took the character in this show. It's interesting. And considering that they were trying to be faithful to comics while still doing their own thing at the same time, it works. It works really, really well. Spider-Man gets in a fight with Dr. Octopus, but in this version, the arms are run by a battery, and the battery goes dead during the fight, so Dr. Octopus has to flee. He replaces the battery once he gets to safety, and then he decides he's going to go to, like, this other place that he used to work at and steal this really, really high-quality battery from there that can last for it's like this really long-lasting battery, apparently, so that he can fight Spider-Man without having to worry about the battery going dead. And he goes throughout the city, and meanwhile, Peter is at a carnival. Yeah, I think it's a carnival. And he's hanging out with Liz Allen, just as like a friend and everything. Because once again, Liz Allen does really like him in this one, even though she kind of tries to pretend that she doesn't. And Peter sees Dr. Octopus sneaking through the city, so he goes after him. And this is just when Dr. Octopus breaks into the building where the high-quality battery is. He steals it, and then he gets into this fight with Peter, and they're racing through the carnival and stuff, and Doc Ock takes a hostage once Peter gets a hold of the battery and everything. And then, tries to keep it from Doc Ock. And Doc Ock tries to, kill Liz Allen and everything. And he's like, "You're weak, Spider-Man. You can't stand to see anybody die." But Peter actually implies to him that if he tries to harm any of the people he cares about, he will kill Doc Ock to, save those people, because he feels that those people's survival is more important than Doc Ock's survival. He doesn't outright say it, but he strongly implies it. Like, that's clearly what he means when he's saying it. I'm like, whoa. And I feel that is consistent with Peter, because even though Spider-Man doesn't usually kill in the comics, I think there are a few rare occurrences where he has deliberately killed people. But that's not usually what Spider-Man does. But I feel this is kind of justifiable. In order to save somebody else's life, if you have to kill somebody to save their life, then by all means, I feel that is kind of justified. And I feel it is something Peter would do. And then they get into a fight. Peter manages to save Liz, and he manages to steal the battery that Doc Ock is using to power himself, as well as the high quality battery. He takes both of them, so Doc Ock can't fight Spider-Man anymore because his arms are useless without any sort of battery. And then Doc Ock is arrested. It kind of sounds kind of lame when I'm just describing it, but it actually is really, really effective. It's probably one of my favorite episodes of the series, even though probably isn't my very favorite. I don't even know what my very favorite episode is, but this probably is one of my favorite episodes. And we still have the Green Goblin mystery going, like, who's the Green Goblin? And anybody who's read the comics knows that it's Norman. The reveal of Norman, the reveal of the Green Goblin hasn't happened yet, but most people know it's Norman, because that's probably thanks to the movies and the other shows that have been around. And then we get the next episode, and it's a Halloween episode. It's basically like the Spider-Man Halloween special, even though it's just a regular episode again, but it's a Halloween episode, which is kind of fitting for the Green Goblin. And Gwen discovers that Harry has been taking that green formula and everything, because she's been worried about him and trying to figure out what he's up to. She figures out that he's been taking that formula. But Harry refuses to stop taking it. And then, what's next? The Green Goblin starts attacking more. Spider-Man starts to suspect that Norman is the Green Goblin because he starts to put the pieces together. He starts putting the pieces together by, like, tracking where Norman is at the time. He sees Norman exiting a secret room in his home, and he puts some other pieces together as well. It seems so obvious to him. He thinks he's really close to solving the mystery. And this surprised me the first time I saw it. This really, really surprised me. We see the Green Goblin. We see the Green Goblin attacking a building, and Norman is in the building while the Green Goblin is attacking. So Norman and the Green Goblin appear side by side during the same scene. And I was like, whoa. Because obviously that means Norman isn't the Green Goblin. Yeah, Norman isn't the Green Goblin. Apparently. So he attacks, and then the Green Goblin steals some more tech and everything. And I think he captures Hammerhead. I don't know if that happened. I'm pretty sure it did happen in this episode. And Spider-Man is swinging through the city, and he takes his mask off in the middle of, like, a Halloween party that people are having in the middle of the town or whatever. And Gwen and Mary Jane both see Peter wearing the Spider-Man costume without the mask. But Gwen assumes, they both assume that, Peter is just dressed up as Spider-Man for Halloween. Or at least Gwen assumes that. I'm assuming that, Mary Jane actually knows that he's Peter, so she kind of, like, says something really witty about how the costume fits him so well and everything. And I'm like, whoa, whoa. And then, what was it? Man, I cannot remember the order that things happen in this episode. I'm really bad at this. I remember it so well when I'm thinking of what to say before I'm recording the video, but then once I start recording, I just can't remember. This is probably going to happen a lot, but how did he find out about the Green Goblin? Did the Green Goblin just attack over there or something? He starts attacking the Green Goblin at one point. I can't remember how the fight starts or anything, but the Green Goblin ties Peter up with what he calls gobwebs and stuff. And we kind of get an homage to the cover of the issue where the Green Goblin actually gets unmasked in the comics. Which is a very, very overrated issue of the comics, in my opinion. But we get an homage to that cover where we see, like, him dangling Spider-Man by a cable in front of the camera and everything. The camera that's non-existent, but of course, you know what I'm saying. But we get an homage to the cover of that issue, which is overrated because the reveal of Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin was botched because we hadn't known Norman Osborn long enough before that issue was released, and so the reveal just really, really falls flat. Like, everything. But they do it better in this show. Peter still suspects that Norman is the Green Goblin. He rescues Hammerhead. And then in another fight, the, like, Green Goblin falls, and Peter sees him, like, limping away. And then he says, "Oh, it doesn't worry if you escape. I know where you live already." So he goes to Norman Osborn's house, enters the building, and he sees the Green Goblin sitting on the couch ready to take off his mask. And he's like, "Yes, I knew it." He takes off his mask and it's Harry instead of Norman. And then Norman walks into the room and he's not limping. But Harry has a broken leg, which obviously means that maybe he was the Green Goblin the whole time. And Peter's trying to put it all together. He's like, "How could he know about Hammerhead?" And Norman's like, "Oh, I was talking about Hammerhead in front of him earlier. He overheard us talking. So maybe when he took this green formula stuff, the globulin green, I'm not sure what it's called, globulin green or globulin green, because I've seen it spelled both ways online. And it's not really clear from the dialogue what exactly he's saying, because it sounds like there might be an extra L there, but never mind. So Harry's drug use turned him into something that he wasn't, apparently, and Harry can't remember anything that happened while he was passed out. But Spider-Man agrees that the Green Goblin will just disappear forever and nobody will ever know who the Green Goblin is after that. It will be like a mystery that never gets solved as long as the Green Goblin never shows up again, and then he leaves. And he later learns from Gwen that Harry is taking some time off of school for a while to take counseling or something. Oh, that's what happened. I knew there was something major that happened here. Throughout this story arc, there was also a thing about John Jameson flying up to space in a spaceship, and his spaceship getting hit by an asteroid. And so he has to make this really careful landing. It's kind of this subplot throughout the episode 9, where he's trying to land the spaceship very well. And we get to kind of see the human side of J. Jonah Jameson, where we see that he really does care and everything, even though he tries to hide that a lot. And that will be coming up, that we'll be seeing more of that in later episodes, as well as in the fanfic we'll be reading after this. But I think it's just really cool. And then, what was it? After they land, they're looking at the ship, and they see this strange black substance on it. And I was surprised when I saw that for the first time. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know this would be leading to the symbiotes already. Yeah, we get Venom. We're gonna see, so that's setting up the storyline for what we'll be seeing in story arc number 4, which we'll be talking about tomorrow if I have time to record it. This is actually a longer story arc because the next story arc number 4, is actually 4 episodes long instead of 3 episodes long. And then the story arc after that, story arc number 5, is also 4 episodes long. So for those of you who are following this series, when you get to story arc number 4, watch that takes up 4 episodes. Episodes 10 through 13 rather than 3 episodes. And then story arc 5 takes up 4 episodes as well. So don't forget that if you aren't watching this on the DVD copies. So I can't really think anything else to say. I really enjoyed story arc number 3. It's probably one of my favorite story arcs in the series, even though I really like story arc number 4 as well. I'm really looking forward to be able to review that tomorrow. And I will see you guys next time I'm able to record a video, which I hope I can record it tomorrow. I have to find time to record these things. So, yeah, this has been Kurt the Gamer.